And a very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are tuning in to the QCast. And welcome to season 2, episode 13. This is an episode that's been a long time in the works, and a gentleman that I've been speaking to a long time about doing this. I'm really excited to be joined today by Gabriel Leifer, the incredibly talented grad student for Yeshiva men's basketball. Gabe, we've been talking a long time, and we got to spend some time together in New York. But look, growing up as a kid, did you ever think you'd be on a program as big time as the QCast? I mean, admit it. Did you ever dream about this?
I never thought I would be on the QCast. I mean, you hear rumors of it growing up, of these podcasts and especially the QCast. I mean, to be on it, truly an honor, and I'm excited to be here and talk about what's been going on and how I got here.
I appreciate that, and in all seriousness, I do appreciate your time because I think you're the busiest guy in D3 hoops, and so I want to talk through that with you a little bit. But let's just talk about the season in general. You guys are rolling right now. You're playing incredibly well. What's it been like now since you've been back from the break? You're 3-0. You've got a ball game tonight. Things are clicking. How's everything going for you and the Max?
Everything is going well. I mean, we still feel like we're not fully there yet. We know we have a lot to work on. Let's say, for example, like we played Tuesday night against Merchant Marine, and we played probably one of our best halves of basketball in the first half, and then the second half we kind of had a little bit of a letdown after we had a big lead, and we usually would be off the morning after a late night game that ends at like 10:15, and then people don't get home, they don't eat dinner until it's like, and then it's already we turn around because we have morning practice. It's not like we have night practice. So we decided, Elliot decided for our team, Coach Steinmetz, that listen, there's 1 month left of the season, right? In a month, it's win or go home, even less now. If we lose in the conference tournament, chances are we won't be playing in March. So we're at that point now where we understand that right now we're not exactly where we want to be, and that's just going to take commitment from everyone. And that means that, listen, if you're losing sleep now because you have to wake up early for practice, that just means that you'll make up the sleep in a few months. We just have to keep working towards our goal. Obviously, it's great to be winning the games when we feel like we're not even at our best, because we know when we're at our best how much more fun and exciting those games will be and how much more we'll win by. But there's still a lot of work for us to do and not a lot of time. And I think we'll get there because we're all committed and we all want to get there. And for a lot of us, this is our last season and it's our last really run together. So I think everyone's 110% committed, and we're excited to see where it goes towards the end of February and throughout March.
And just in your personal side of that, kind of that time commitment equation, most Division III student athletes are super busy because they're going to school and they're playing a sport. But you've got a couple other elements going on here that are a little bit out of the norm for the average Division III student athlete. First of all, you're married. Second
Yeah.
of all, you have a full-time job. You're already in the real world while you're going to yeshiva as a grad student. How are you balancing time right now? Just you personally, how are you juggling everything that's been going on since, practice started back in October?
It's definitely not easy. And I was actually speaking to someone at work this week, and they were saying that they actually feel like maybe I'm better with time management with so many things going on, because if I don't time manage, then everything will fall apart. So there's definitely an aspect to it where when you have so much going on, you really have to focus on when you can do what and how to balance everything. So I think that definitely helps, as if, let's say, I had only two things going on, because then, you may get lazy one day, but now it's like every day has to be serious and as intense and committed to everything as before. But I mean, it's definitely a lot. I have basketball. I have a wife. I have work. I'm studying for the CPA. I have graduate school. It's not easy. You wake up, practice. I told Elliot, I'm like, listen, if we have practice anymore, it can't really be at night because of work. It's starting to get busy, and I want to be there. I'm committed, but let's try to work together. where I can be there in the mornings and I can be there for the team and show the team that I'm still showing up and show the team that I'm as committed to them as I am to work. And but it really just takes every part of what I'm up to right now is very understanding of what I'm trying to do, what I need to do, and what I want to do. You know, my coaches and teammates are understanding that I'm working, and my work, I was approved to be able to go play, and my wife was accepting that I'm going to be doing all of this. And obviously, we want to hang out together, and we got to make sure to find time to do that. So it's a lot going on, but really, it's just everyone being flexible and understanding of where I am, what I'm up to, and the opportunity that's at hand, and everyone just working together to make sure that it works.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole QCast with you on just organization and time management, which we may come back and do at some point. But I think every Division III student athlete that's busy can take a page from Gabe Leifer, because he's just got all kinds of real world stuff going on in addition to playing college basketball and going to school. So kudos to you. Let's go backwards a little bit, Gabe, and just talk about your background. You grew up in Lawrence, New York. And just curious, you know, as a kid, who were your basketball influences? Were there college players? Were there NBA players? Who were guys that you were influenced by back as a kid?
So growing up, I mean, he's not like, this was when I was like 6. This was more when I was in like middle school and high school. I think Kevin Durant is my favorite player just because I think he's the best scorer of all time. And, you know, I'd be like in my driveway shooting around pretending to be Kevin Durant growing up, because he's just, I don't even know, he's 6'10" or 7 feet. Who knows the height of these players actually. And he can play in the post, he can handle the ball, he can facilitate, and he can also shoot the ball. So I definitely loved watching Kevin Durant. I'm a huge Duke fan. You know, I'd honestly say I probably became a Duke fan because I was a winner picker as a kid. I mean, you don't want to root for anyone that stinks. So I just started to love Duke. So all the guys that played at Duke, definitely loved watching them. But then also, like, as I started getting older and I started molding into, let's say, the player that I am now and the way that I play and the role that I have, I started watching guys like Kevin Love, modern day guys like Nikola Jokic, Tim Duncan, guys who kind of just aren't like the flashiest guys. They just, whatever they do right. They pass the ball, they step out, make a three, they can make a post move. They're not trying to do too much. And I think that's also something that I think has honestly made, and I'll tie this into us being at Yeshiva, has made Yeshiva successful over the past few years, is that sometimes, like most times, we have guys who aren't trying to do too much. We have guys who know their roles, and you can see this on all the top teams in the country. It's not, you don't have 5 guys trying to be a 20-point scorer. You have 2 guys who you need to be your 20-point scorers. You got your post player, you got your defender, and you got the guy who's going to grind on defense. So you have so everyone, when you know those roles, like, you can be a 20-point scorer, but you may never get a shot playing at a high level just because you're trying to be a 20-point scorer. If you're trying to find your role and know what you're best at and try to fit a system, that's where I think you'll be successful. And I think you see that all over the country and also in the professional sports.
And that seems like it's always been your style. You know, the thing you're known for now is kind of being a selfless guy that does all the little things. You certainly can score. You score a lot of points, but it seems like passing the ball and rebounding ball are more important to you than scoring and finding people and your teammates and running your offense. So would you say that was your style when you were a high school player? I know you were a great high school player. Were you the same type of player you are currently at Yeshiva?
So in high school, I would say I was probably a completely different player because I was the guy who was asked more to score.
Right.
But I was also the one who tried to get my teammates involved because let's say the defenses were focused on me, you know, teams that throw box and one. I knew that if I can probably shoot it and I'll probably make a few shots, miss a few shots, but if I'm getting my other teammates involved, then that's where we'll be the most successful when they're making shots. But it actually was after my semifinal game my senior year in high school, and Elliot came over to me and he said, what do you like, whatever, I had a great game. We just blew out a team by like 40. And he said, "What do you think your the best part of your game was?" I was like, "I don't know, maybe like I scored like 20 to 30 points, whatever it was, a bunch of rebounds, like had a dunk, whatever it was." I'm like, "Maybe that." And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, so what was it?" He's like, "Just the way you see the floor and the way you move the ball." And like I never thought of it like that, and that kind of really kicked in. And like I thought about it, and like I started realizing that, hey, maybe he's right. Oh, let's see where I can go with this. Let's see how I can work on this, how I can get better at what other people see in me that isn't the flashy stuff. So I guess kind of at that point I started like to realize what my best asset was.
Talk to me about your college recruiting process. Did you know that Yeshiva was the place for you early on? Were there a lot of schools on you, or like who was in the mix school wise, and how did this decision play out?
So there are a few schools that I always knew of Yeshiva University. I mean, as you can see now with like just the Twitter and the age of the fans that come to the games that live in the New York, New Jersey area and people that fly in, like when you live in the community, you know Yeshiva University. Like it's always like you have cousins that went there, you have family members that went there, your parents, family, friends. Like it's just one of those. It's the school that like if you're Jewish, a lot of people just go to, and like it's never like, oh, like let's say for example, like I went to like Penn University of Penn basketball camp, and there are a few schools there, and I got like a letter from Rochester and a couple other Division III schools, and I was only hearing about those schools for the first time. It was definitely cool. It was exciting. It was interesting. I was like, oh, let me look them up. Let me see what they're about. And I was like, oh, Rochester made a bunch of deep runs in the tournament. That's really cool. Like Division III March Madness. And those were really the first time I was hearing about those schools. But also like growing up, like I was one of those little kids who, let's say, watched the Yeshiva University game. Like it was always a part of my family. It was always a part of like, it was always an option. It was probably the top option always. And I guess I really came to the decision when I realized that I didn't want to sacrifice any aspect of my religious observance and just the accommodations that like you don't have to worry about when it comes to the Sabbath, about having to play and having to travel, or when it comes to holidays, how are you going to work that out? So it really just fit the picture. And Elliot pitched the dream, you know. So far we haven't gone to the full dream that we pitched. We hope to this year, but he pitched a dream about winning the Skyline Conference Championship, which didn't happen until
Right.
just a few years ago, and just the dream of what we're able to build and what this program can become.
Wanted to ask you something that I've been meaning to ask you around what it's like to grow up being a Jewish athlete. And what I mean by that is through this whole crazy experience of the Yeshiva Illinois Wesleyan game and the people I've gotten to know, I've really gotten to understand at a pretty deep level things that I knew nothing about, had no appreciation for before. And one of the things when I returned from New York, got this amazing letter from a fan, a Yeshiva fan, basically saying that, you know, like it was so cool to watch that game because, you know, growing up as a Jewish athlete, sometimes we're stereotyped as this or that. And it was cool to see, you know, Yeshiva just battling a team from the rest of the country and to see our guys on the stage like that. And so everyone knows that they can play. Talk to me about that, Gabe. Like that's something I don't understand. I grew up in Chicago, Catholic guy, you know, in a totally different world than you grew up. Talk about what that gentleman was talking about when he wrote me that note.
Yeah, so I guess this kind of also ties back into like when you said like growing up, like who was your favorite players that you were watching? And I think that's what makes us very special now is that I grew up saying Kevin Durant, Tim Duncan, all those guys, LeBron James. These kids now that are growing up, they're starting to say Ryan Turell,
Yeah.
Opek Reep, Simcha Halpert, all these guys, Eitan Halpert, Gabriel Leifer, and they're starting to be in their driveway saying that we're the people that they're looking up to. We're the people that they're excited to watch. Can't tell you how many times people say like, "Oh, I had tickets to the Knick game tonight, but like, hey, I wanted to watch Yeshiva ball." It's an unbelievable platform to be on, and it's something that's so cool because let's say you're getting letters already, like from Jews around the world saying like they appreciate what you do. Like Elliot, like he doesn't like to tell us this all the time because he doesn't want to distract us, but like once in a while he'll say to us like, "Hey, I just got an email from this random person in Texas, no idea who, or not Texas, like Kansas, all over the world, literally, like all different countries, and they're like, hey, we live nowhere near a synagogue, nowhere near a kosher supermarket. We're not observant at all, but you make us feel a connection to Judaism, and you make us have Jewish pride." And I think that like as amazing as it is to play at all other schools, I think that's just something so special about Yeshiva is that like you're giving other people so much pride that you will never see in your life, you'll never meet. And like you can be walking anywhere and I'll be wearing, like I was wearing my YU bag and this random person once stopped me in the street and they're like, "Hey, we love watching you, like keep making us proud." And I'm like, "Hey, that's awesome." So I think like it's just that whole experience of, it's a little cliche to say, "Oh, we're playing for the Jewish community," but like you really do feel like you're playing for the Jewish community because you see so many different types of people, so many different observance levels, so many different religious levels when you come to the game, and like when they're at the game, they're all one, they're all excited, and they're all rooting for the same team. So I love it. It's exciting, and our fans are amazing.
I mean, that's one of the main takeaways that I've had from being involved in that whole experience is, I mean, your fans are incredible. I mean, the level of love that they have for your team, the university, is like nothing else in Division III. It's just
Yeah,
unique. And you guys as student athletes, you really are. You're playing for so much more than everyone else is. You're playing for so much more than just your school, and that has blown me away to get to learn about that. Let's talk about kind of some of the fun stuff, the build up to this Illinois Wesleyan game back in December. And, there's been a lot talked about how that game got set up via social media, which it did.
you can take
And
the credit.
what's that?
You can take the credit.
I'm actually going to give you a lot of credit. Is where I'm going with this. Is what I was going to say is that, Elliot and I ended up kind of talking through it, and I encouraged him to talk to our people, and I encouraged our coach to talk to Elliot. That's really all I did. A lot of my reason for pushing for this, and you probably don't know this, is you and I started talking well before that, right? You and I were talking on direct messages, and the conversations were around, and you tell me if this is fair. You guys were feeling very, like we're a really good team and people don't know about us. People aren't giving us the national respect. And it was back at that time that, Ryan Scott from d3hoops.com was the person that nationally really got on you guys first. And he started talking about Yeshiva. And at first I was like, I don't know about Yeshiva, whatever. And then I started watching you and watching how, and realizing how good you guys were. So then I got on the bandwagon somewhere after that. And that's when you and I started talking. I mean, for a long time there, fair to say that you guys felt like you were playing in this little bubble where you're doing all these great things and no one knew who the heck you guys were. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct.
And then, our conversations they were great, without getting into things we talked about personally, but just sort of around, like, I remember one time you said, we just want to play the best. We want to play the best. People think we don't play good schedule. And you kept saying, we just want to play the best. We want to compete. We want to play. And that was, whether you know it or not, that was one of the reasons that for me personally, that it was so cool to see this thing play out, because to me, Elliot and Ron Rose that was one part of it. But hearing, like, from your standpoint, how important it was, that drove my side of it, whether you know it or not. Like, that was a huge part of that. So you had a huge hand in getting that game done, whether you know it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. But I also think it's kind of funny because, a few years ago when we were that team that wasn't recognized for anything, we were like, hey, look at us, like anyone see us, we're playing good basketball, like come watch us. Now it's kind of like, and we have that national attention, we're like, all right, we got to put this aside, like we got to focus on basketball. It's just funny the turnaround, I would say, like, and it's got, you kind of could look back and laugh at it, but also listen, we want to play the best. We know that the school tries. We know that the geography and where we're located, we can't play those teams in the like Illinois Wesleyan and Wisconsin Oshkosh, like all those teams the whole year. We also are limited because of the non-conference schedule and who we're playing. So we love that. We love to play those teams. You know, we got beat. We because we don't play those teams every single day. We're not used to a team like Illinois Wesleyan with the size, the depth, the coaching, the skill, the shooting, and the level that they play at. And we just got beat that game. But we know that we're going to need to play teams like that. And I think St. Joe's, Connecticut will be a great test for us going into the tournament. And also these conference games, you know, they're tough. You go on the road, you play a conference team, no matter who they have, if they lost anyone from the year before, you've been playing against the coach the whole time you're there. They know you, they know the team, they know the way that they play against you. They know they know our coach. It's chess match between the coaches. Those games aren't easy. Also, you also have to grind out those games. But we're going to try to not look ahead of ourselves. We want to, when we practice, we say, hey, we got to be here for March. But when we play, we say, hey, let's focus on this game now. We got to win this game. And I think that, listen, I hope that next year, like, I don't know the schedule, but I know that they're going to Illinois Wesleyan for that tournament. And I think that's just something that the program's become over the past few years. And I remember I was listening to, I think, your interview with Coach Rose, and he was saying, like, and you're talking about the non-conference schedule and who they're playing. You're like Wash U, YU, all these other schools, Wisconsin, Oshkosh in the tournament. And he was just saying, like, this is the program that we want to build. These are the types of games that we want to play. You know, we're not shying away from competition. We want to play the top teams. And I think that's what YU is becoming. And I'm proud to be one of the people that like built the program to that stage. But listen, when you're a ball player, even if you lose by 30, you want to be playing the best teams. So we love the competition. We want to play more teams and better teams every day. And hopefully, as the year goes on, towards the end of March, we'll be playing against those top teams.
One of the other really cool things about that game was after the game, there was a lot said about the interaction between players on both teams with each other, fans of Yeshiva with Illinois Wesleyan's players. There was a picture someone took, and I happened to kind of stumble upon you guys somewhere right before after that picture was taken, you and Pete Lambesis talking. So you guys just play this knockdown drag out game against each other with all this attention. And you guys were just sitting there talking like nothing happened about the fact that he's an accounting and finance major and you're already in the field. And you guys were talking about some connections and kind of, you were trying to help connect him with a recruiter. I mean, that was pretty cool, man. Like, I don't know how much you could share about that conversation or all that, but to talk about that a little bit, because it's gotten a lot of attention.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's just, when we played against each other, I think we hated each other. I think we respected each other. We both wanted to win the game. We both wanted the guy on the other team who may have been talking to before after the game to miss the shot they're going to take. But after the game, there's just a mutual respect. I think that was kind of, I don't know where it was built from, but there's a mutual respect between the two programs. And I think that comes from the coaching and the families where the players come from, and just the morals of the program, of just like, I don't think there's a bad guy on either team, one bad guy or one selfish guy. I think everyone, like, when you're playing in a game at that level, and you know you're not in like the Division I spotlight, you're in Division III, and like people don't realize, like, to get to that level, and I think you were tweeting about it last night, like many people say like, oh, you're too good for D3, but how many people are being told that wouldn't have fit in the Oshkosh Platteville game? So I think there's a mutual level of respect for where we come from and the level that we're playing at between the players. And I think that also, like, you know, we don't have Division I on our resume. What we have is Division III, and what we have is our schooling and the connections we make. And I think that's something that I definitely have taken away, is the relationships you build in Division III. And listen, I know that if I was on the opposite end of that and I was playing against a guy who was working in the field that I was going in, I would really appreciate it if he came over to me. And I think that, listen, he just beat us when we play. If he ends up coming, maybe we'll be on the same intramural team. He'd be a good pickup
That'd
guy
be
to
awesome.
have. Definitely would want him on my team, not playing against him. But they're just nice guys. I mean, it was my conversation that I had. You could see pictures of other guys. I think I saw a picture of a few guys. I don't want to call out names because I don't want to leave anyone out. But they sent a T-shirt and a card to a fan, a random little kid, Jewish kid who was at the game, and they just like reached out, and they didn't need to. No one would have known if they ever didn't, and probably it was such a nice thing to do. Obviously they didn't do it for the attention. They don't need that status. They're not, those aren't the type of people that they are, but they're just like a great feeling of like, hey, look at this atmosphere, regardless of the outcome. Like, look what we built here. Like, this has never happened here. The players on the IW, they're saying like, we play in big games. There's never an atmosphere like that walking into the game. I mean, it looked like Texas Tech in Texas with Chris Beard's return. But it was just an awesome experience. And listen, when I'm at like a wedding now, and people come over and be like, hey, we never discussed the Illinois Wesleyan game, they're always like, hey, how can I get a Pete Lambesis jersey? I'm like, hold on, let me text him. Like, it's cool to have that relationship, and also like, listen, maybe something will develop from it and maybe not, but like, at least there is a conversation to be had, and at least like, if there ever is, like, I know him and he knows me now. We can always connect, and I think that's something special about Division III, and especially that game.
If you and Pete are ever on the same team in some accounting league, I mean, I want you to hook me up with a live stream so I can live tweet it. Can we agree on that? Is that a deal?
I thought you were going to say that you were going to start working there so you can join.
I just might, actually. I just might. That would be a pretty cool matchup.
I'll get Poppers there, though.
Poppers would cover it like no one's business. We both know that. I also have to bring up, I've got a lot of new friends that have come from the Yeshiva community, and I gotta call out my guy Shua. And are you aware of the box out theory, Gabe? Are you aware of the boxing out theory? Can you confirm or deny? Do the Yeshiva Max box out their opponents? I believe you do, but my guy Shua is saying maybe you don't. What's your opinion of the box out theory?
It's a good theory. Sometimes the stat sheets will say one thing and the game will say another. Listen, we definitely can do a better job. I don't need to say that we're amazing at boxing out. I mean, when you get out rebounded by any team by 20 in a game, you're not great at boxing out. You just didn't do your job. And in order to be great at rebounding, you got to do it every night. Because listen, if another team's going to take 10 more shots because they get 10 more offensive rebounds than you, chances are you're going to lose the game if they're a good team. We definitely focus on it. In practice, we started doing the possession doesn't end until the rebound. If the offense gets a rebound, defense is running or defense is doing X and Y. We definitely have realized that we all got to box out. And when there's an offensive rebound, we set goals for ourselves. We're like, hey, that just can't happen. But I mean, it's just about getting a body on a guy and everyone crashing. Sometimes people may get lazy and take a play off, and that may be why they get an offensive rebound. We'll keep working on it, and hopefully that doesn't happen again where it'll hurt us.
Look, my guy Shua, he breaks down the tape, and he has stats on this stuff. Like this guy Shua, my guy, he made a comment on a podcast after the game. He had a percentage that Illinois Wesleyan was shooting in the pregame, just shooting jump shots pregame. He's like, they were shooting 61% from three in the pregame. So get a body on some guys, because this guy Shua, he's got the stats. Well, I'll just leave that one there. Let's talk a little bit. I want to talk about Ryan Turell for a second. Do you remember when you first heard of Ryan Turell? Was it when he was a high school kid getting recruited? Was it when did you first hear the name Ryan Turell?
Yeah, so first, it's his birthday today, so I'm going to give him a happy birthday.
Happy birthday to the GOAT.
To that.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Right after breaking the all-time point record. Hopefully he celebrates. And we don't have practice too early, so he can not go to sleep at 8 and ruin his birthday. So happy birthday to Ryan. But Ryan is probably, when you see a guy, if I were looking at a box score and I see, oh, someone scored 45 points, you're probably thinking like, hey, he probably just took a lot of shots. He's not the best team player. I could say that's absolutely not the case with Ryan. He's the ultimate team player. He's a great leader. There are times where he picks me up, and there are times when he was a freshman and he'd pick me up, and he'd say like, and freshmen don't really do that, but he just always had like a natural instinct to be a leader. But more towards the question of when I first heard of him, I actually played against him in the tournament when he was in ninth grade.
Wow.
We played against him in the quarterfinals. We beat them pretty easily, and all I remember was like he was not on the scouting report. It was like, hey, they got this freshman kid, very skinny, very lanky. I don't even think he was so tall yet then. I think he was probably like 6'2", definitely not 6'6". And listen, he probably scored, but I can't like, honestly, I don't remember playing against him that game. He wasn't the guy we were looking out for. Then I go to Israel to study for a year and a half, and by the time I come back, I walk back to the same tournament where I played him, and he's playing in it, and I see the 6'6" guy who put on probably 100 pounds since his freshman year, 100 pounds since his freshman year, and he was just a completely different player. And I was like, wow. And then I turned to Elliot because I joined the team in January. I'm like, we gotta get this guy. We need him to reach the goals that we want to. And listen, he was getting offers from way cooler places than YU. High level Division I, mid level Division I, and he totally had every reason to go for the level that he was at and the potential he was at. But I think there's also something about him is like he has such a pride in playing for YU, representing the Jewish community, and he has a pride in representing that. One of his goals is, hey, Jews can play. Why don't you think you can play? Jews can play, and hey, we're gonna beat you. You step on the court against us, we're wearing a yarmulke on our head. I'm still gonna beat you. He's like, I'm gonna drop 30 off you. And I think that's just something that makes him a special player, is that like, it's not just he's so committed to the game. He has that extra motor that most people don't have, because he's so committed to proving something, and he's so committed to staying true to who he is and not sacrificing his religion in any sense. And that's why I think why you ultimately got him. And I think that's why we've been as successful, because of just his commitment to everything he does.
I've made the comment before that Ryan Turell could be on every college basketball roster in the country. I think he could start for 90% of the Division I teams. Like maybe he doesn't start at Duke or wherever you want to pick, that's Purdue or something, maybe not. But would you agree, like Ryan Turell could play college basketball at the highest levels? You watch a lot of basketball. Agree with me on that? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, look at the attention he's getting from the NBA, and just there's scouts coming to the game watching him. I think that speaks from, you don't have scouts going to more than half the Division I game from the NBA. Maybe you'll have overseas scouts, but they're coming to Division III game to watch him specifically. And I think that also just speaks like for itself that like, listen, he's so good that even at a Division III level, there are going to be NBA scouts who are coming to our game over some Division I games just to watch him over guys who are Division I. Division I's obviously the top teams will kill us, but they're coming to watch Ryan Turell, and he definitely can play at a high level. I mean, he's 6'6" or 6'7", whoever knows, maybe 6'8" now. And he's a point guard who has unbelievable footwork, and he's shooting at such a high volume from three that, like, even if you're to say, oh, maybe he's not quick enough, I'm not saying that. I don't think that, but I'm saying if people are going to say, oh, maybe he's not quick enough, maybe he's not, doesn't defend like that, like, why can't he just be a spot up shooter who's better than 95% of Division I shooters? Like, he'll fit his role if he needs to, and I think he can be more than that, but there's just so many different ways where he can fit into that game.
Yeah, incredible player, just special generational type talent. He's incredible. Wanted to ask you, shifting gears a little bit, just about you following the national scene. We talked earlier about how there was a point where you guys were kind of in this bubble and not many people knew about Yeshiva. Now a lot of you guys are just all over the national scene in terms of following. Like, you'll send me a text or something that says like, I'm watching Oshkosh, they're really good, or like how much are you following what's going on in Division III outside of Yeshiva?
As much as my schedule allows me. I can always check a box score. I always go on the website, choose playing. Maybe maybe I can tune in for 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I can never watch a full game. Just don't have the time for that. But I definitely like to see what's going on. I like to watch clips. I like to read what people have to say about them, and I kind of just take it from there. But sometimes you just look at some of those top teams and you're like, hey, they're good. They're tough to beat. They've got size, depth, coaching, shooting, everything. And listen, hopefully we get to that point where we can play those top teams, and instead of having to watch it from the sidelines, I can watch it by playing in the game. I think we'll get there. Hope to get there. And I'm excited to play against top level talent like that, where you have 5 guys on the court who can all play in Division I.
Your 1920 NCAA tournament, 2019-2020 tournament, the one that got shut down because of COVID, you guys were rolling. I mean, those first 2 games were incredibly impressive. Your offense was clicking to an incredible degree. Now you've got a chance again here. Last year there was no tournament. You got a chance this year. There's going to be a tournament. And what are your thoughts, going in? I know that there's still a ways to go before that's a reality that you're in the tournament. So we'll just say that that's, granted, but you got to be pretty excited about the chance to get in the tournament and make a run and do some damage. Have you let your mind go there yet?
I've been thinking about it since it got canceled. I feel very bad. I remember being on the bus and just seeing the seniors, their careers end the way that it did. People, I think Randolph-Macon that year was the best defensive team in the country, and we were the best rated offensive team in the country. And it just would have been a great game to play in, and also not to have that closure to the end of their career, whether you win or lost. Like they said, we'd rather lose by 60 and know that we lost, rather than it just ending the way it did. But also just tying into that run and everyone saying like, oh, Yeshiva must have been so upset. Like, yeah, it stunk. But when you look back at it, and we didn't understand in the moment, we're like, oh, NCAA's babies. It was just Rudy Gobert. And then you look at it 2 weeks later, and like you just hear about the hospitalization rates and how many people are passing away. And it's tragic. It's still tragic. The pandemic, the virus is still here. Hopefully everyone's safer and healthier now. But when you look back at it in perspective, you're like, okay, we shouldn't have played, whether we wish we knew what happened then or not. Like there are bigger things going on than basketball at that point. And we just have to take a step back and understand that in order to keep moving forward. But when you look at it and you're thinking about the tournament now, you still, obviously you hope that and you're upset that it got canceled, but you still have a better understanding. But like now you're even more excited to get back there, it's going to be a great opportunity, and all we need to do in order to get to our goal is have a good 5 or 6 game winning streak. And that's just what we got to do. And that's what we got to come together as a team to do. And we don't think that we have no reason to believe that we can't do that. So it's definitely exciting, and we definitely have high goals for this year. And we think that anything besides them is a failed season, but we got to keep working. And that starts by shoot around today that the guys are going to have. And that starts with our game tonight. The first possession, you hit that first shot, like for example, Yoder against us, it was a perfect swoosh. From that moment, they didn't need anything else. They had all the confidence they had. We just need to have a good first possession and keep working from there and building our way into the tournament, so we can be clicking like we were when the tournament got canceled in, I think it was 2019 in Sweet 16. So we just got to keep working, one shooter at a time, one game at a time, one possession at a time, and keep working towards our goals.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And as I've told you, my dream here is somehow Fort Wayne, the rematch, so the
We're all rooting for it.
Titans and the Max. I think we both know that game looks a lot different the next time around. Both teams know each other. So we'll see if we can't make that happen. We got a lot that has to fall into place on both sides, but boy, that's the vision at this point. I wanted to ask you just a couple more questions. I know how busy you are. Elliot, your Coach Steinmetz, really, really special dude. I've really been lucky to get to know him through this whole thing. He's a unique guy, man, in terms of I think just the way he communicates really authentically, and his approach on the game, X's and O's wise, his offense is brilliant. Talk a little bit about, Elliot and how he leads you guys and what he's meant to you and your teammates.
Yeah, so he means a lot. I mean, you go based on how your coach goes. It all starts from the top and it works its way down. He's not the one who he just puts the product on the court. He's not the person who can actually affect the results by playing himself. And that just comes from preparation and the time put in. And you think I'm busy, he's a lawyer. I can't imagine how busy he is. He's working every weekend. The second practice ends, he's also running to work. This isn't his full-time job, but you also, and I appreciate it more now that I'm working, the commitment that he puts in. I don't think the players, obviously they appreciate it, but I don't think they can appreciate it as much as if they were working. And I think they will see in a few years or next year, whoever starts working, the time commitment that he puts in and the effort that he puts in and how he's just fully there for us. And he'll always have our backs. He's the coach. He's like, whether I kick you off the team or not, if you play for me, I'm writing a letter of recommendation for you. I'll help you find a job. I'll always be a mentor for you. Just because if you're on the team and I kick you off, that doesn't mean I don't like you. He's like, you were my player. I was your coach. We have that relationship. It just means that this team wasn't the right fit for you. But he's like, I'll always have your back. He'll always fight for us. He'll always send out that letter of recommendation. He'll find you the jobs. He'll find you little gigs. He'll find you whatever you want. He'll always be that. And I think that's more than basketball. I think that's a common theme around our team, is that a lot of times in sports, it is more than just the sport. And like we're talking about, it's the relationships you build and with the teammates and the opponents, and him just being there as a coach who is in the work field, who has a ton of clients and knows so many people. It's just an amazing resource to have, as on top of just him being a great coach.
Yeah, and most people, like you said, they don't realize that he's a full-time attorney, so like,
yeah,
Ron Rose at Illinois Wesleyan, and I know how busy he feels all the time. And here's Elliot that has all the same responsibilities that Ron Rose does, but he's also working as an attorney throughout the day. So I don't know how he does it. I have immense respect for him. And I know that all of you guys love playing for him from all the things that you and your teammates have told me. Just as we start to wrap up, we've talked a little bit about the rest of the season. Any certain keys for you the rest of the way here? So as you think through the Skyline tournament, and you mentioned earlier, you might have to win that. We don't know that for sure. We don't know if you get a pool C bed, or if your strength of schedule, your results against regionally ranked, blah, blah, blah. We don't know quite yet where you stand, but you do know that you've got to play good basketball through the conference tournament. Any couple keys to that as you look at the final stretch here?
Yeah, and I think just to talk on that, about we're not playing for a pool C bid. We're trying to win our conference. Why control we can control, and let's not leave it up for people who watch us and look at our stats and compare us to other teams to make that decision for us. To make the decision ourselves, and let's win the tournament and put ourselves in the tournament so that we don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. We definitely have to start playing better basketball, because right now, a team plays very well and we don't click one night. Why put our ultimate goals into jeopardy? We want to be that team where, like, we're walking in, we're winning by 30, 40 points, and we got work to do, and we're going to get there. But we're going to just, in our mind, we're like, hey, let's win the tournament. Let's win the conference, lock in the tournament spot. We don't want anyone who's watching us to make that decision for us. Let's make it for ourselves, and let's be committed to each other. So obviously, yeah, like, I hope we get in if we were to lose the conference tournament, but we're not playing for the pool C bid. People want to talk about us for a pool C bid. That's not our goal. Our first goal is to win the conference. Our next goal is to win the tournament.
It's very well said. And as a fan of a team that's been on the bubble for pool C many times, it's not fun. I don't recommend it. I believe you need to go win the Skyline so you can enjoy the rest of that weekend, and not just what I end up doing. I end up grinding out all these random games. Like, I'm rooting for some team I've never heard of to lose or to win. Or I don't think you want to do that, Gabe. Hey, just a couple final thoughts on my end, then I'm going to leave it to you for any final thoughts for you. I would just say thank you for all the time over all this amount of time. We've been talking about doing the QCast for a long time here. So I'm glad we finally made this work. I had someone ask me, when was it, about 2 weeks ago? They're like, you changed your profile pic to you and some kid. Who is this kid? And I was like, oh, he's plays at Yeshiva and blah, blah, blah. And what I explained to that person is that, I think you're such a humble, impressive, hardworking young man, and you're what Division III basketball is all about, Gabe. And it's great to see that you've gotten such attention. I know that, you're playing in the shadow of the best player in the country, but people have rightly shown a spotlight on you too. And I think that's really cool. I think you deserve it for the way you play the game of basketball, the kind of teammate you are, and the way you represent Judaism, your university, all of that stuff. So I just think, kudos to you and thank you. And it's been great getting to know you all this time. And I'm just going to kick it to you for any final thoughts you have for Yeshiva Nation, D3 Hoops Nation, anyone that's tuning into the QCast today.
Yeah, first of all, I just like to say, I love playing in the spotlight. That just means we have a better team. If there could be 15 guys in the spotlight better in front of me, I'm happy, because I don't think I'm a bad basketball player, and I'm happy to be in the spotlight if that means that we're winning games. They should get all the attention that they deserve. I'm playing with unbelievable players. Ryan's a special player. You have other guys. I'm just gonna stick to Ryan because that's what we were talking about. But you have other guys, and I'm happy to be in their spotlight. I'm happy to get them the ball when they need it. If they're getting going, if Ryan scores 51 points and I score 0, I'm the happiest guy if we win. If it's within our offense and he's getting those shots, I'm the happiest guy. So I think that just what we've built in Yeshiva is awesome, from where we started to where we are now. Never thought I'd be speaking with some voters, especially you, about who we are, how we've come from here, why we're different, and talking about ultimately a Final Four rematch. No one ever thought that would be possible with Yeshiva. No one thought they would ever win the Skyline a few years ago. They barely reached the Skyline championship. So that's just unbelievable. But also I'd like to thank you for putting together and really facilitating where a lot of what Yeshiva basketball is. I'd say probably half of your followers on Twitter are probably Yeshiva guys.
Without question.
Half of your tweets are in conversation with random Yeshiva guys on Twitter. And I think that's just amazing. And I think that's why Division III is special, is because you have those relationships with all the different people from all around the world that you wouldn't have in Division I. And just everything you do. Is thank you for coming to the game. Thank you for announcing it. Thanks for reaching out to us, reaching out to me to do this, and just continuously watching us, and not supporting us, being honest with what you think. Not a lot of times people aren't honest with what you think, and why not be honest? You say it as you see. We have a good game, you're going to praise us. We have a bad game, you're going to tell us, hey, you guys had a letdown. But appreciate that honesty and appreciate everything you do, and hopefully we'll see you in Fort Wayne.
It's very well said. And there's that hashtag YD3, and the fact that you and I are sitting here on the QCast talking to each other is the best example of YD3. I mean, a kid that's playing basketball at a Jewish university in New York, and a guy that who's many years older than you, who grew up in Chicago in an Irish Catholic neighborhood, and somehow we've gotten together to talk about basketball is all you need to know about YD3. So, Gabe, I'm your biggest fan, and I'll be rooting for you. I would like you to say hello to your father for me. The time that I got to spend at Burgers and Grill on game day, hours before the game, with you and your father was one of the most memorable parts of that trip for me. Tell your father I said hello. He's a great person, great human being, and I wish you well. And I will see you in Fort Wayne, my friend. Is that fair?
I think that's more than fair.
Gabriel Leifer on the QCast. That is season 2, episode 13. Thanks so much, Gabe, for your time, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.